Let's go back to school, shall we? This is a story from One News. I'm assuming this all came out of the party conference over the weekend, but it seems to have broken last night and today. National Party in the late 90s floated NCEA, started in the early 2000s, I guess under Labour, I guess then, because it was 2002, that would have been Auntie Helen. And now they're saying enough is enough. They're overtly coming out and going, we suck at planning these. Our system doesn't work. No, I didn't quite do that. But, and so we're going to do it again. So NCEA could be gone, Burger. Let's have a look at what they're talking about.
Old school grades are set to return, with all levels of NCEA to be abolished. The government is proposing to bring in an internationally benchmarked national qualification for secondary school students that it says, quote, opens doors for every young person, whether they're heading into a trade, university or straight into work. The reform's moving away from the current standards-based assessment to a subject-based approach, and it'll be phased in over the rest of the decade, fully in place by 20.
It does feel very 1980s, 1990s to me. Like back, like getting New Zealand back on track, like Mr. Luxon kept talking about. Maybe that's what we're talking about.
30. The proposed changes include Year 11 students no longer sitting NCEA Level 1, instead focusing on building skills in literacy and numeracy, recognised through a new standalone Foundational Skills Award. There'd be 5 subjects in Years 12 and 13, with students needing to pass at least 4 to earn each certificate. The grading system would change, with marks out of 100 alongside A to E grades. And there'd be new subjects in areas such as construction.
A to E. Because it used to be 80 to 100 was an A. Like 60 to 80 was a B. And then you get a C from like 50 to 60. What do we still got? D, A, B, C, D,
and E. Fail, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay. All right. E used to mean entrance. My kids talk about that. I got E. I was talking about when they're last year at school. Yep, we got E. So it's like, unless they had a party that weekend and they weren't telling me about it. Could be that as well, I guess.
And hospitality. The government saying it'll work with industry to make sure students have the skills required to enter the workforce.
Again, something going back to our kind of when polytechs were polytechs, not universities. That's what they were. They were polytechs. You'd go in there and you'd learn a trade. And there were schools. It was that horrible thing. I don't want to oversimplify it, but you know, the kids that were better with their hands, not quite good academically, that had a path for them to go, and they could well be the plumbers or the builders or the mechanics. So it does feel a bit like we're going back to that.
There's already a bit of this, because I mean, one of my mates' daughters, she, in her last year at high school, she was doing half of it as a kind of a work experience with in a trade. So yeah, you wonder how much new that is.
I'm about what's best and what works best. As I said at the start of the show, devil will be in the detail. This government, I don't find very trustworthy. Like to be able to go, oh, they'll do it right. So I want to know more details before I kind of go absolutely not or 100% yes. Because it could be a change for the better. It could be a change for the worse. It could be a change that makes no difference. We don't know until we get all the details.
Yeah. I think that, you know, there's always been the criticism of NCA that understanding where people are at is harder than with the, you know, a grade system. But does that mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater? That would be the question for me, especially since if we're sort of reverting back to what we had, and that was thrown out by the Nats because it wasn't working.
All right. Let's play a bit more.
But there are fears many pupils will end up being left behind. Here's senior political reporter Benedict Collins.
An audience of business bigwigs gathering at an Auckland law firm to hear the government unveil its new plan for our school kids.
We are proposing to replace NCEA with a new national qualification that better ensures our young people are ready to take.
It's going to be a certificate that they do at school. We're going to call it school certificate.
What?
It's going to be something that helps them get entrance into university. We're going to call it university entrance.
So, for my sins, I've been involved in a lot of policy launches over the years, and you know the design of your policy launch, where you're going to hold it, who you're going to be speaking to, is a big part of that. So, how he ended up speaking in a conference hall in Auckland to lawyers is weird. This kind of suggests that it hasn't been developed with the educational community, because surely, you know, if you had the teachers all the educational academics on board,
Yep.
you'd be announcing it with them, and they'd be going, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, true, actually. And Carl points out, I hope they don't mean a national qualification, which is very true. All right, let's get back to our hairless leader.
Take on the world.
NCEA was introduced over 20 years ago, offering a more flexible education. But now it seems it's become a little too flexible.
And I have to admit, as a parent, I didn't understand why the children said to me, we don't need to sit the exam because we have enough credits already. And coming out of an exam, a 3-hour exam after only an hour.
Yeah, that's bullshit, Erica. You do understand because you just explained it, that they'd built up enough credits. You're old enough, to remember School C being internally assessed. And if you get enough marks for internal assessment, then the end of year exam, it mattered because it could keep that on. But if you're already past 50% from your internals, then they didn't need it to pass. So come on. You don't need to make up bullshit. You can say, I didn't like the way they did it, but you don't I don't understand. Yes, you do, because you explained it. So obviously you understand.
And this speaks to the concern is that this is kind of being done for political purposes rather than coming out of, educational science and good understanding of what actually leads to good educational outcomes. The fact that it's been spun like this and that it's not happening in front of educational experts, it's happening in front of lawyers, kind of says that this has been done for politics rather than out of an actual assessment that this is the best path forward. And it kind of makes me think of the Inter-Islander ferries or the Dean Hospital or State House build or all those things where they kind of said, no, we're throwing out what's happening because we reckon we can do better. And we also reckon there's a political hit to be had here. That's the concern.
Well, the thing as well, and they haven't quite got to it yet, but at the start it said, implemented by 2030. And I went, okay, so a couple of years of consultation, a couple of years of trials, and they'll put it in there. And then they went, that means fully implemented. They're going to start the changes to year 9s next year. That's 4 months. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't care how efficient you are as a government. Redesigning the way you educate 13-year-olds in 4 months. Again, this is not it won't work, but I'm comfortable saying in 4 months you will not get a good enough result in planning over 4 months.
There's a lot of self-confidence here that has perhaps not been borne out by the other things that they've decided to tear apart, and I do think it's a bit of a disease of both major parties is the temptation to do reform and shuffle the deck chairs rather than actually concentrate on what is the science telling us is the best option here and are we resourcing the system properly. They rather than up resources, they're like, well, can we rearrange it to try and squeeze some more juice out of what we're already putting in.
All right, we'll get a bit more from this.
We don't need to sit the exam because we have enough credits already. And coming out of an exam, a 3-hour exam after only an hour, and saying that's okay, Mum.
So NCEA is getting the BIFF. Foundational Skills Awards and Certificates of Education are on the way in.
So by getting really clear about what we're asking kids to do, getting them into the core subjects that actually get.
And now they're away from Tripman Trap, whatever they're all Chapman Trip, and they're offered another one. They're offered the Voice of Business, continuing this conversation on. So they've left the lawyers, and now they're at a business meeting. That's a very astute observation you've just made. You'd want to have this in front of the teachers' unions, or amongst a group of high school principals. I was thinking presidents there, but they're not presidents, are they? Principals. So that's a really interesting, really interesting observation.
Give them the foundational knowledge that they need to build out their education from there. That's really important stuff.
And this new qualification gives you that deep subject learning and consistent across the country. It doesn't matter if you're at school at Rangitoto College where my kids are, or at Katikati College or anywhere else in the country. They will get access to the same internationally benchmarked strong curriculum.
And you couldn't have just made tweaks to NCEA or made changes and kept that qualification as it is now?
We started with everything on the table with the professional advisory group, but the structure of the qualification with the standards-based assessment, it makes things really challenging.
It will be gradually phased in over the next 5 years.
This is how New Zealand becomes a wealthier country by virtue of being able to access higher paying jobs as a result.
Now, that bit feels like CEO talk.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to school certificate and we will all be wealthier because of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hang on. I don't quite, that feels like spin alley. You know, that's like you're trying to justify this move, which then again doesn't give me that sense of confidence, because that sounds like bullshit. I smell bullshit. You know, he's got something brown on his chin. He's talking shit because it's, how does that then lead to us all being wealthier? That just feels like a bit of a spin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, look, obviously education is foundational to the potential of a country. It's, you know, human resource, not, you know, it's a horrible way of saying it, but, you know, the potential of our people to do those jobs is really important. But again, if you want to do that, you're going to make marginal differences at best by tweaking the assessment system, right? What really makes a difference is more teachers, more TAs, the ability to have the resourcing to actually make sure. And that's why, if you look at a private school, they have really low teacher to pupil ratios, right, compared to a public school, because they know that's how you get the best educational outcomes. And so, you know, I think that a world-class education system should be part of New Zealand's economic future. It should be something we could export to the world. We could be attracting people here, you know, more at university level, at all levels. But we have to be willing to make the investment to have a world-class education system. And tweaking the assessment system just feels like rearranging the deck chairs.
And let me remind all of us, the Regulatory Standards Bill is a government bill. We'll see if Winston blows it up or not. Part of the Regulatory Standards Bill. When developing regulatory standards, it is crucial to consult with those who will be impacted to ensure the standards are effective and fair. This process helps identify potential issues, gather diverse perspectives, and improve the overall quality of regulations. I wonder how much consultation has been done with principals and teachers and people in the education sector. I mean, because their regulatory standards bill say you have to consult with those being impacted by it. I suspect not many have. So are they breaking their own regulatory standards bill, which is not law yet, but when it becomes law, are they therefore breaking it because what consulting's been done?
Yeah, well, it's the same. There's no benefit cost analysis, is there?
Nope.
You know, and yeah, like I say, I think a lot of times governments of both stripes do this thing where they decide they're going to reform an institution or a sector after their reckons of what's best, and there's just no evidence that the change will be worth the hassle.
And the Prime Minister always goes back to, whether he's right or wrong, right? I don't think there's any evidence for what he said, but nonetheless, he always goes back to, this will be the financial reward for this legislation. You know what I mean? Like, according to him, as long as there's a positive financial result, that's in and of itself is enough of a reason to do change to legislation. Like some regulatory changes or some legislation changes might make us healthier. They might not make us richer. They might make us happier. But his only yardstick seems to be money. We'll all be richer. You know, like that. I don't think that, I'm fine for that to be a way of measuring things, but it seems to be his only way of measuring things.
Which is ironic when considering how badly the economy's going under him.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the Greens and see what they have to say about this. And look, again, I'm not actually necessarily anti this. This is like announcement one. Details, please. The Greens have come up with some thoughts, though.
But not everyone's convinced. It's a good move.
Education is about curiosity. It's about creating lifelong learners. So we shouldn't be looking at education purely through the narrow lens of so the economic framework or labour market?
Well, no disrespect, but I don't think we take advice from the Green Party on education policy.
Because,
He always says no disrespect before being disrespectful.
but why? This
Yeah.
is my 5-year-old podcast moment. But why?
Mm.
What? Because if you were taking it sounds like what you're saying is taking advice from the late 90s National Party didn't work because you're changing it. So why not get the Greens involved? Why not make this that horrible word of bipartisan? Why not get some people across the board? Why not, if this is about the kids in New Zealand, if this is about the future of New Zealand, involve all the political parties and say, guys, let's get together, let's build something so that when you guys come in, you can still support it. Why not? That doesn't sound like a terrible thing to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like the last thing we would want to do is it turns out that this system is so horribly outdated that it then itself has to be torn up and replaced again. And so you have to create enduring solutions. And actually, that's what National did in the 90s. It was, I was having a little look at the history of this before we came on, and it took years. That identified the problem. That took years, and Labour critiqued it at the time a bit, but there was a genuine effort, I think, to make it endure, and that's why Labour still implemented it, even though it had been announced and developed under National. And so we need, for things like this, we can't be having that snarky politics. This has to be enduring.
And it's not the same policy, but it's a bit like I wish they'd get together on infrastructure. If you're looking at a 40-year plan, obviously you're going to have like ferries, for example. Nikki, no boats? Anyway, let's get to the end of this, shall we?
Well, Paroa College thinks the new plan has merit.
Yeah, NCEA has been around for just on 2 decades now, so it's time for an update, time for a change, and the future is really positive and pretty exciting.
The bit they liked best, establishing stronger ties between schools and industry.
Yeah, that on its surface level sounds good. I like that idea. I like the idea of, having. I mean, I don't like the idea of thinking about our children being a pipeline to industry, but for the kids who want to be mechanics, or the kids who want to be builders, or the kids who want to be chefs, a way to be able to do that. And you're saying they're sort of doing that on some level now. I don't hate that idea in principle.
Well, I think that's part of actually, ironically, the idea of NCEA was because you can have these small units, they can be, you go along, work at mechanic, you learn how to do some small thing. It's like a micro-credential, right? And it all adds up towards the level. Whereas they seem to be saying, no, you're going to do physics, and it's going to be this big block. And if you fail or pass, and there's 5 topics a year, whereas NCEA, what's confusing for us, but as meant to be part of the sophistication, is there's lots of little credentials throughout the year that add up.
Yeah, all right.
We're in the process of setting up a trades academy, and to strengthen the vocational pathways can only be better for the whole of our country, both academically and, of course, vocationally.
But for now, they'll keep on delivering NCEA, the qualification that's fallen out of favour.
There we go. That's the end of that story. Now, before we came to Clint, you were talking about questions around the finances for it, were you? Do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, no, it's just, I think I've kind of already said it, but fundamentally, they're not putting enough money into education, and this feels like a distraction. And look, if they made the grading system clearer at schools, I think that would be great. If I could understand how my kid is doing, go back to out of 100, go back to A, B, C, D, E, F, great. But it doesn't fix the fundamental problem that there aren't enough teachers. They're not paid as well as they should be, so that we retain them, and they're not supported by enough teachers' assistants and all the other resourcing that schools need. And that's the fundamental problem. And if you want to improve educational outcomes, that's what you would do. But they've chosen not to. And, goes back to what you were talking about with Craig Rennie the other week. It's all choices, right? They've chosen to put bugger all money into education because they wanted to give tax cuts to landlords. Yeah.
And when we're talking about choice, for those who weren't here, it comes down to their budgets. When they say, that's outside the terms of the budget, you're like, but you guys set the budget. You have on some level have endless amounts of money if you want to, and you're saying we're going to draw a line in the sand here, then all of a sudden you can't pay for it. so therefore it's not within budget. Ferries are a perfectly good example, right? You said not 3 billion. You drew a line in the sand. It's going to cost 3 billion. It's between me and you. But you said that was a line in the sand. So you cancelled it all. You're going to try and do something better for less. You're not going to, but you decided that the budget couldn't be 3 million. It's not that it couldn't be 3 million. It was a choice you made. You drew a line in the sand and you said, this is what it's going to be. The health system, there is a budget for the health system that you go, okay, that money's going there. If you wanted to, you could hold that money there and get another pile and put it there as well. But you choose not to. They're all just choices. They're all just choices. And sitting in front of a politician going, $17 billion, that was a choice. Landlord reimbursements, tax cuts, that sort of thing. Why did you choose that over, for example, increasing the pay of teachers, nurses, doctors, police, firefighters? Why did you make that choice? I'm not going to challenge you, but you made a choice. Why did you make that choice rather than, let's say no tax on the first $15,000, which is a pretty common thing by some. Why did you make that choice? Landlords and tax cuts versus. That's what I wanted. That's what I want some people to ask them.
Yeah. It would be nice to see, a proper assessment of, the government spends $150 billion a year. Is it spending their money on the right things? Instead, you see, and I think we're going to watch Chris Bishop. They talk about, oh well, there's only so much money in this pot. Yeah, but you made the size of the pot.
Yeah, you went and had a ghost moment where you stood behind Demi Moore and you did this and you made the pot and you made it the size you wanted to make it. Maybe he's okay. There you go, designers. You ready for that, Discord? I think Christopher Luxon in the front and Christopher Bishop behind, like on Ghost, making the pot, and then they chose to.
I'm not sure that'd be a seller, man.
Could be a t-shirt. All right. Sorry. I apologize, Fano. I went off on a tangent there for a second. Peter says the best way to improve education would be by spending more to improve the teacher-student ratio and reducing the poverty students suffer at home. Yeah. And can I say one other thing? To go back to decent school lunches, these kids who for whatever reason, I'm not going to cast aspersions, right or wrong, the only decent meal they were getting each day was at school, and then you yanked that away for them to give them offal, which was reported at the start of this term. NCEA started under national in the early 1990s. I think it was the late 90s, and then it actually kicked off in the early 2000s with Auntie Helen, I think, officially. Thank you, Kiwi Bird. Over Red Rover, this sounds like national rolling out of Cambridge exam. I guess it could just be that, couldn't it? Yeah, that does seem to be more of their vibe. Arvid says he's turning our kids into wage slaves. Yeah, that's what I was saying. And I don't like the idea of sort of school to mechanic pipeline. But I do like the idea of kids having choices, and this is not a disparaging comment, but we all had those kids at school who were academically amazing, and we all had those kids who were practically amazing. And if the kids who want to do the practical thing, they want to do that, I think it's pretty cool that there's a path for them to do that. Because my concern, Clint, is going through NCEA, if you're more practically inclined and you wanted to go down that path, but you don't pass NCEA, then that actually goes against you for getting into perhaps like tertiary education, if you do want to go there and study to be a builder as well. So, it's not all just, they can do it now anyway. There can be, it can hamper them going through this way as well. So,
yeah.
Sorry, was there something else, Clint?
No, just agreeing with you on that. I think the education system has got so much better at that stuff than it used to be. I look at, I remember my school days compared to how it is now, and I think they do a lot better at not letting kids slip through the cracks. But again, I don't think that necessarily comes down to the switch to NCEA or away from it or whatever. I think it's down to improvement in how teachers teach, and that's come through research and experience.